Hey, friends, we are live. Welcome back to Notes from the Edge. This is where we have the conversations that we should have been having the whole time. I'm your host, Lisa Lacey, writer, trauma educator, author of the upcoming memoir Notes from a Certified Madwoman, launching in October, and we are on time for that. So I'm so excited. I'm really excited about our guest today, Kayla Crane, who specializes in some of my favorite topics. Relational trauma. We talk about that in here. I don't think people talk about it enough. Attachment and helping couples rebuild trust after some of life's hardest moments. And boy, isn't it hard to cohabitate healthily with another human being? Whether you've experienced betrayal, struggle to communicate with somebody, simply wondered if your relationship was healthy or too difficult, this conversation is going to help you because Kayla is a licensed marriage and family therapist based in Denver, Colorado. That's on our list to visit soon. She specializes in helping individuals and couples heal relational trauma, recover from infidelity, so hard to do, improve communication, and develop healthier ways of communicating with one another. Her clinical work integrates the relational therapy, EMDR, attachment theory, solution focused therapy, and systemic affair recovery. That sounds fun. And is passionate about helping people understand how trauma shapes relationships and empower people to feel better. Kayla, thanks for coming today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Lisa. It's nice to meet you and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we have space for these conversations. You mentioned relational trauma a
Yep.
lot, and I don't think that gets enough attention because it can be so destabilizing, devastating, and debilitating. So, can you talk to our listeners about what is relational trauma?
So, yeah, the way that I use that term is that trauma that typically happens inside of a relationship, but we also have trauma that is outside of a relationship that impacts our relationship. But most often we see it inside the relationship with infidelity and maybe history of if one partner had an addiction or any kind of betrayal, which is infidelity is not the only form of betrayal, right? Dishonesty, there's financial betrayal. There's all
Mhm.
kinds of things. So typically, though, any form of betrayal or history with just like really negative conflict that didn't repair appropriately, I guess I would say,
Gotcha. So it left
kind of left
residue.
open. Yeah,
Yeah, the wounds are there. The wounds are there.
right.
Well, many people believe that relationship problems just begin with poor communication, but you say that that's only part of the story. So what are we missing? What else is there?
Well, it begins in our childhood. We bring it all in because that's where we create these beliefs from our childhood about who we are as humans. That's when we become humans. We develop all these beliefs. And so if I've developed a belief as a child that I'm not good enough, that's going to be like going to show up throughout my entire relationship. That's going
It
to be
does, like 30 years later in your second
yeah.
marriage. You're like, I'm 10 years old again.
Right. And, if your partner says, hey, you forgot to pick up the mail, it's like, well, I knew it. I knew I wasn't good enough. And so that's not necessarily, a communication thing. That's more of a childhood trauma
Yeah,
problem.
exactly. Well, and I think if we start becoming the cultivating the observer of our own experience and our own thoughts. I had a situation, and you'll get a kick out of this because this is how sticky trauma can be. I did TikTok for 2 years, lives every day for 2 years, and it's the Wild West on there, and you get all kinds of crazy stuff on there. And I would let most comments just roll on by, and some of them were pretty nasty, um, from dudes, always dudes. Um, and this one guy says, "Your hair would look better longer," and I just kind of let it go. But Kayla, 3 days later, I'm still thinking about that comment.
Yeah.
And so I had to stop and I had to go, wait a minute. It's been 3 days. Why am I still thinking? Do you know why? Because my hair was never good enough for my mother. I don't care if it was purple or blue or black or short or long. It was never good enough for my mother. So, dude put me back into being like a 10-year-old girl again. But what was cool about that experience is when you work with people like yourself to really excavate, you start noticing you're not on autopilot anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that example, it wasn't about your hair. It was about you, and so my hair can usually be replaced with like I'm
Yeah.
not good enough, right? And so
Yeah.
those messages, well, your mom probably didn't have any negative intent. She didn't want you to feel like you weren't good enough. You took that in and filtered it and thought, well, and that's what kids do. Kids
Mhm.
personalize everything, right? It's the world
All
is
our
about
fault.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not just your hair. You were getting a message, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I spent many years trying to prove that I was. Well, okay. So when somebody has experienced trauma, how does it quietly sneak up on you in, say, a healthy relationship? Give us like maybe an example of that.
Yeah, so kind of like what I was saying, because we all have that. Even if you don't have trauma, we have these beliefs that we develop, and we never know what's going to create a belief in a child. So, um, that can be even somebody with undiagnosed ADHD, as a child or even diagnosed, their teacher might have said, like, why can't you remember your homework? And then
Mm,
again, they like personalize that, right? It's all
yeah.
about me. There's something wrong with me because they have to make sense
I'm
of that. Why
defective.
can't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, why can't I remember that? And so what happens is we start responding to situations that aren't in front of us. I was just working with
Yes, we
someone the
do,
other
don't we?
I was just working with someone, the other day, and they were saying like, I don't know why when I asked my partner, for how much the grocery bill was, they get so defensive. And oh, okay, well, mom used to always say, whatever it was. And so we do that constantly. We all do it. We respond to something that's not in front of us, and what it is, it's from our past. And we
Yes.
respond.
My husband
I
and I
always
had
tell
an
people, I
argument
don't
about biscuits and gravy the other day. It was not about the biscuits and gravy. We ended up eating them,
no.
but it was not about the biscuits and gravy. Yeah.
It's not. And I tell people I don't like the term overreaction, but when you see what maybe from an outside perspective looks like a disproportionate response, that's a
Oh, I
clue.
like that. Disproportionate response because it
Yeah,
takes the shame out of it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
love
it's a
that.
clue. Oh, this
Yeah.
is something
It's
bigger
data.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's information.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Disproportionate. So, okay, so when somebody says, does something that seems disproportionate to what just has happened, there's layers there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, what do you tell couples to do? Say, I'm just for hypothetical reasons, I might be the disproportionate one. What do you tell couples to usually do in that situation
Mhm.
when it's not about the biscuits and gravy or the hair?
So ideally, you can kind of identify, oh, this doesn't really fit here. And if you've done your work, you might have a suspicion as to what some potential triggers are.
Love it.
And in that, I do relational life therapy. So relationality is, how can I support my partner when they're not at their best? How can I like if they're not regulated, how can they borrow some of my regulation, and support
Ooh,
each
dig
other in
into
that?
that. Elaborate on that, because I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't know if I want Brody borrowing my energy over here. I don't
Yeah.
got a whole lot of it.
Yeah. No, it really, that is relationality. We can't always be at our best. I always tell people, but if you can take turns, then it can still work,
Exactly. A
you
relationship
know?
is never 50-50. It's
It's
eighty
never 50.
20. It's 60
Yeah.
40. I think the hardest times, because both Brody and I struggle with mental health struggles. We're in recovery from addiction. I think some of the challenge is us recognizing that in each other, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and stopping. Sometimes you just got to pause and stop and go, okay, we're about to get ridiculous here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it
Taking
just,
that is one of the most important tools that you can use in a relationship is a break.
uh,
And the key to a break is to always set a time and always come back to it at that agreed upon time. But that gives you the ability to use any tools you've developed. But when you're dysregulated, it's unreasonable to expect you to use your tools, and
because you can't
so
access them.
no, you're in
They're not
you're in
there.
that yeah, you're in like
Yeah.
survival mode. And so
Yeah.
again, if you can make the agreement when you're both regulated that like, hey, we're both doing our best. We talk, the purpose of communicating is to make things better, And
Love it.
so if they can make an agreement that, hey, if you notice that I'm kind of dysregulated, will you call a timeout and we'll come back in 2 hours? Or will you be try to be receptive to when I propose to take a timeout with the agreement that we're coming back to this. No one's
I love
avoiding
the
it.
coming back to it,
Yeah, it's
because
critical.
my abandonment issues kick in when my partner wants to take a break,
Yeah.
because I go into that little, is he coming back? He's never coming back. He's leaving for good. Like, it's
Yep.
pretty insane, actually, but it happens.
Well,
I'm gonna be honest, it happens. So I love that idea of, okay, you go over there, I'll go over here. We'll meet back at 8 o'clock and readdress this, see if we even need to talk about it. Because a lot of
yeah.
times there's not even anything left to talk about once you've calmed down.
Yeah, no, exactly. I always tell people for whoever has like more of the rejection abandonment like history, it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable for them for the first few times with their partner suggesting a break or taking the break. But once they come back to it, those agreed upon times, the person who suggests it comes back to it, that'll build the confidence and it'll give the other person a little relief and them to be able to tolerate that because they have evidence that we will actually come back to it because we have in the past.
And it builds trust
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah.
It's a form of rebuilding trust. I love that. I love that. Okay. I want to talk about this because I went through a 13-year relationship where this was a chronic problem, we shall say. Infidelity is very painful and it's really tough to get over. Is healing from infidelity and developing that trust again possible? And what separates couples from who bounce back from that and people who don't? What is with the people who bounce back from that and they stay together and true to their commitment and they work through that really hard, painful stuff? What are they doing that couples that separate and divorce don't do?
They're processing it. They're understanding why it happened. Both people are understanding why it happened. And that's the model I use is, we go through your entire family of origin history, your previous relationship history, the relationship that you're in history, and
Love it.
then we talk about the infidelity story. We don't get there until after all of those steps because we need to have some understanding, and that's laying the foundation to, oh my gosh, when this happened, when your partner said they didn't want to go on the date with you, you felt rejected. Wow. And
Mhm.
then what do you do when you're feeling rejected rather than what did you learn? What was modeled to you in terms of communicating that unhealthy, or in terms of communicating that feeling rejected? And usually there weren't tools there. Nothing, it wasn't modeled appropriately. And so, infidelity isn't just a outside experience. Like there's so
No.
much context and so many times, people just go, oh, in previous, when we've tried to work through it, they just said, let's move forward. How can we not have this happen again? And it's like, No, you have to understand why it happened to keep it from happening again. You can't just say, this time do better. No, we've got to understand the root
And it
causes
requires talking about it.
completely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so uncomfortable to
As many
talk about
times
all
as
that.
it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that may be uncomfortable too, especially for the one who committed the infidelity, you know?
So the model that I use, we talk about it as many times as it takes until everyone agrees we know all the facts of the story. Once everyone
Ooh.
agrees the facts are done, we close the door. We're not opening it back up unless more information comes to light. And that can be really, it can be a little scary and vulnerable for the hurt partner to do that, but it's also a relief for them, because there is this temptation. Let me just look back on those text messages, screenshots that I took,
Oh,
or
you can get stuck in a nasty hole of like
and yeah, it can
tracking,
go on
tracking.
forever.
Ah, yeah, yeah. I was in it. I was in it. It
Yeah,
was. It was. I've been through some stuff. I have survived
yeah.
some stuff. I've almost died a million times, but getting out of my second marriage was getting out and staying out and going no contact felt like death,
Yeah,
and he was
yeah,
a terrible human.
yeah.
But
Well,
it felt like death. Yeah.
yeah, because that's an attachment, and our attachment comes from infancy. And if we don't have an attachment to our caregiver in infancy, we do die. So it actually does
Mhm.
feel like death, or it feels that scary, like a matter of survival almost. And so that's
Yeah.
actually very normal. I try to tell people it's not so easy to say, like, oh, this is fine. I can trust that you'll come back, because if you have a abandonment wound, like as a baby, that could have cost you your life.
Yeah. Survival
Yeah.
mode. Yes, yes. So attachment theory, you hear a lot about attachment theory online, but it's often oversimplified. So how do attachment styles actually influence our adult relationships? And if they're not healthy for us or not working for us, how can we change those?
Yeah, attachment styles are the kind of like the heart of a relationship, and they inform how we operate in the relationship, and they also inform like the lens that we look at things through.
Oh,
And
I love
so
that.
the
Yeah.
lens with somebody with an anxious attachment, they're going to be looking at things through a lens of rejection and abandonment. So almost anything can happen, and if you really boil it down enough, they're going to have felt rejected, even if it's not something that it just
I don't
looks.
feel like pizza tonight. Yeah, yeah, and then you're
Exactly,
in tears.
exactly. Yeah, right. And then so an avoidant, you're gonna look at things through a lens of failure and worthlessness.
Oh,
And so usually those are the most common pairing. And so you can probably, and so they just activate each other, and that's how you operate in the relationship, right? Somebody who's anxious, since they're feeling rejection and abandonment, they're naturally going to want to come closer. Let's
mhm.
repair this and
Clingy.
come back together, so I feel close again, because otherwise it feels like abandonment. But then somebody with avoidant attachment, when there's conflict, they're going to be feel like looking at that lens through, well, I'm worthless. I
Oh.
failed my partner, and that's going to result in them shutting down. And so then they activate each other because they want to
Girl,
shut
we may
down.
need to
And
hire you. I think you're starting to get too close to home over here. You're starting to get too close to home. Oh my goodness. Okay.
yeah.
So I know you've got to roll out, and I want to make sure you have enough time to get ready for your next thing. So our audience hears me ask this question to almost all of our guests. In your life, what do you believe you performed in order to survive? And how did dropping that role, that identity, that mask, or that performance help you move forward?
Yeah, I think, I have an anxious attachment rooted in rejection and abandonment. And I've done a lot of work on myself and it still shows up sometimes, but it's impacted definitely my relationship, me as a friend, as a parent, as a professional. When somebody doesn't email me back when I expect them to, it goes to that, oh my gosh, I've been rejected.
Yeah.
Of course, I've got small children, and when they say, you're such a mean mommy or whatever, they get mad at me. It's like, it feels like rejection. So my own work has been number one, like the awareness and really the understanding of what that is, where it's coming from,
And
and me
compassion to ourselves too, right? Like a
yeah,
lot of
right.
compassion. Like it's okay. It's understandable. I think
Yeah,
if we can,
validation.
yes, self
Mhm,
validation, like telling ourselves anybody that endured what you did would
mhm.
feel the same way, right?
Yeah,
So you have
yeah,
to talk to yourself with that instead of the blame and the judgment and the I shouldn't be and I could be and I would be and all the woulda, coulda, shouldas. So, okay, and what do you feel like, Kayla, we're not having enough conversations about right now that we need to be
uh,
talking about more?
I think, like, how trauma impacts our lives, our relationships. I always tell people, like, trauma, it's such a huge word. People think, oh my gosh, that's for a brutal assault or being in combat or something. But like I said, it can be one comment that a teacher made that sticks with you. And we all have trauma. If you look at the term
Thank
trauma,
you. We all have trauma. It is part of the human
yes.
experience. Yes.
Yeah. If you look
Yes.
at how they use it in the medical field, right? Somebody might get like a paper cut and they'll say that's a trauma to your hand,
Mhm.
and so it doesn't need to be this huge thing, but it
No,
impacts
but
us
a
in every
1,000
way.
paper cuts are gonna hurt,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
Right.
1,000 paper cuts are gonna hurt. Well, I love that, I love that. Well, Kayla, thank you for bringing both your clinical expertise and your compassion to this conversation and reminding
Yeah.
us to be compassionate with ourselves. Relationships can become the places where our deepest wounds show up. So, guys, if you're feeling super stuck, Kayla knows her stuff. If you're in a relationship and or even if you're single and you want to be healthy for your next relationship, reach out
Yeah.
to Kayla. Kayla, where can people find you? And we'll make sure all of it's posted here, but where can they find you?
Yeah. My website's just southdenvertherapy.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, South Denver Therapy.
All right, perfect. We're going to make sure all those links are up. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us today. And friends, thank you for listening today. If you're struggling, you know where Kayla's at. All her links will be listed here. And remember, ask yourself, what did you perform in order to survive? And is it still serving you? And if it isn't, what will you gain by dropping the role, the mask, or the performance? And start talking about the thing that you don't want to talk about. I'm your host, Lisa Lacey, friends. Welcome to the Edge. We'll see you next time.